I could see where people would think it's a cult.
At that time, there really wasn't anybody older who was really doing anything good like what he wanted to do. So it was like recruiting young people that were fresh and training them. So I was one of a handful of those people.
Coming into the industry, I felt like, oh, there's only certain things you're gonna be able to do, so here's where you should set your heights, you know? But then with John, it was like, no, set them way over here. And for our age, for 18, 19, 20, that was what we were looking for.
When I first started working there, I had a really distinct memory of going, like, I can't believe I'm here. Like, this is exactly where I need to be.
We were in the place we needed to be, and we were working out primally how to make the best cartoons.
It's like all of a sudden I'm like 18, 19, and I'm working on a show that is obviously revolutionizing TV animation. And I was so enamored of this personality, but in working at Spumco, I realized that it wasn't just John. John was really good at being a driving force. But behind that driving force came all of these people that made you care.
You know, the drawback with cartoons is they take so long to make because you have to animate it, and you can't get the cartoon up and running unless you're South Park. You're going to have to spend a year to get a season figured out.
Each cartoon takes 9 months to make.
Oh man,
I guess you'll just have to kill yourself.
yeah, we will.
As much as I talk about how much we screwed around, you still had to spend a lot of times indoors, sitting down, drawing hundreds and hundreds of drawings.
It's the nature of animation. All those drawings have to be done. It's madness. It is a mad medium in that 24 frames a second, even if you break it down.
So we were doing first episode, Stimpy's Big Day. You could see the pressure from the very beginning. Everyone was there drawing, really following John K's notes, trying to redraw, very intense. And all I could think of is, this is not gonna last. It's either gonna drive, I'm thinking of Lynn now, you're either gonna go nuts from this, or you're gonna go further and further down this rabbit hole.
But then, see, I was with John for a while as his girlfriend, so we broke up, so I left.
It was kind of like Mom's going, and we're left with Psycho Dad. But we have two Psycho Dads. We've got John and Bob, two alpha males who are highly overly opinionated. And this was like before we even finished the first episode of the series.
We were all trying to live up to John's idea of quality.
John was, willful, and he was eccentric, creatively volatile, hard to deal with, nasty, but he was the artist.
I think he wanted to sort of jump to the next tier of quality, and he sort of expected his artists to follow through on that, and when we didn't, he would call us out.
I've been called a dictator. I disagree with that.
He was the hardest director I ever worked for.
He had a sadistic edge.
I was screamed at least 3 times in public.
The artists that worked for me had more leeway than they ever had in cartoons they worked previously and the cartoons they worked on afterwards.
There were 2 factions. Some people thought he was a crazy person, but actually John had a razor-sharp vision of what he wanted. And he really does see things nobody else can see. That's true.
John could be really tough. I would sit in there and I'm just like, okay, you're gonna say one more thing and I'm gonna take this fist and double it up and knock you off that stool. And I swear to God, it's like he had a psychic meter in his head for when that place was with me. And he would instantly go, but you did a really good thing right here. And that's really nice. And one of it's like, okay.
It was a hard job because his standards were so high. It was an enormous amount of pressure, but we'd all signed up for that. And we'd all signed up for, no sleep and really long hours and coming in on the weekend.
I know in my case, and a lot of people's case, we just had that side of us that wanted to be attached to something really cool.
There was a lot of talk about, like, how could you work for this guy and da-da-da-da, he's such a jerk. I mean, you work for jerks in your life. But if you work with somebody who actually cares about what they're doing and you can take some pride in it, that is rare, actually. So I'd much rather work for the jerk who has pride in what he's doing.
He's like a cartoon character himself. I mean, you go eat dinner with him and he orders a salad and he goes, "Here, John, what the hell is that?" And you pick him up and throw him across the room. You know, he's badly behaved, you know, but funny.
John's secret is, if he doesn't get it the first time, he'll try 10 more times. And if that doesn't work, he'll try 100 times. He will do something until he gets it. He obsesses over getting it right. And if you're doing the thing right, it's never easy.
It's all about, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen, and everything's fair game, and you pick on everybody and everybody picks on you, and you know, you don't hold back any punches. It was like that at Ren and Stimpy. And I think if John K. were normal, the show would be more normal.
Hands. Dirty. The dirt won't come off.
A lot of people think that Ren and Stimpy is shock. To me, it's not. It wasn't shock at all. I really believe that it was characters expressing just emotions that are kind of horrifying to look at, or people are scared to look at, of depression and mental problems, delusions.
It's psychological. And John was a master at transferring what was here directly into your mind.
One thing I noticed early on is the characters were assuming the shape of their emotion. If they were depressed, they were kind of flattened down. If they were real happy, they were stretched and lively. And, you know, it was almost you were looking at symbols of emotions. And then when you had the expressions on top, it just made it that much stronger.
The characters emote, they change, they squash and stretch. They express themselves in a visually grotesque way.
We got to know who Ren and Stimpy were in their heads. We got to see psychologically what was going on in there.
It's happening again! My brain!
I think John really tried to get expressions that are kind of based on life and trying to do a cartoon take on something that's very specific, something complex, and not just like something out of the Preston Blair book.
There were a lot of studios and cartoons that had a very formulaic use of, this is what, you know, their lip sync chart looks like this. And, you know, that people just kind of plug it in. And John was like, no. While you were drawing, you had to make the expression. So if Stimpy was smiling, you were smiling while you were drawing. Or, you know, if he was angry, you had to really put it into the cartoon. So we had to study acting.
It takes a long time to become a good animator, just like it takes a long time to become a good actor.
You know, back then, laser discs was a big thing. So John and I would get all these laser discs so we could freeze frame them. We studied a lot of the sort of classic Hollywood actors that actually overacted. Kirk Douglas was a favorite.
The dirty pictures you put there today.
Dirty pictures.
Yes.
Kirk Douglas, the amount of crazy expressions that goes into his face for one expression is like staggering. If you were to look at all the drawings and see what went into, you know, one of Ren or Stimpy's expressions, it would be like, wow.
One of the things I love about Kirk Douglas is he reminded me of my dad. And he reminds me of men in general, maybe not the men of today, but traditionally, men try to keep their emotions inside, but they can't ultimately because it builds up. The more you keep it inside, you don't cry and you don't yell, it's just churning like lava inside you. And I used to watch my dad. Whenever my dad was chewing me out or lecturing me, I'd see him like, he's doing this. I said, Johnny? And I could tell what he's feeling is, I don't want to kill the guy, but I have to somehow get through to him because he's such a damn moron. So he's holding back all this violence, and I'd see his face twisting and boiling. It's like, oh shit. But it was entertaining. You know what it's like when you're a kid and you're having dinner and you're supposed to be on good behavior, and the more you're trying to be on good behavior, the more you hear your friend snickering. And then you can't look at him, right? And you start to snicker. And then you watch your dad getting madder and madder, until he breaks the fork in half. I was scared shitless. But whenever I saw anybody doing some kind of extreme emotion, going through an extreme trauma, it's like a movie camera went off in my head. And I would just absorb it. I wouldn't even be paying attention to what was being said or what the meaning of it was. It's just a turmoil that I was watching. It's a man trying to be like a normal conservative, Leave It to Beaver type dad, to make me become a normal conservative, clean-cut boy. They can be proud of with his friends, and brag about it. That was never going to happen. I spent most of my time in the basement just drawing and copying characters out of comic books, and that my dad thought that was nuts, and that reading comic books was destroying my mind. I think he was right, but I had to hide them under my bed and stuff, but he'd always find them. And then he'd blow up, start kicking the comic books all over the room and everything. But yeah, there was never any question in my mind that I was going to be a cartoonist. Come hell or high water. And my dad would get mad at me and everything. Only 1 in a million will make it in Hollywood, buddy. You think you're going to be that one? I'm like, yeah. I think I'll be one of them.